off mute?
I have, yes. My microphone was switched off for some reason.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know Sharon Barker's trying to get into the call.
Right. Well, hopefully she's got the link now on the WhatsApp group, so she can join.
She is on the call.
Ah, yeah, she's in. Yeah, brilliant. That's great. Okay. So I've got a short presentation to go through, and that's as much as anything else for me, just to make sure I cover all the points. Can I ask everyone to just to bear with me as I go through it all, and then save the questions for the end, if that's all right? Just to make sure I cover everything from start to finish. So if you have a question, just make a note of it, and then hopefully there'll be plenty of time at the end for questions. So if everyone can go on mute, and then well, I'll invite questions at the end. Okay. So yeah, so welcome everyone. I don't think we've got everybody here who is going to be a team member, so we'll make sure we will share this afterwards, because it's important that everybody hears the same thing and prepares themselves in exactly the same way. What I'm going to cover today is just remind everyone on this team what our objectives are, what progress we've made for to date, and what you can expect over the next week as we have our countdown. What happens on a typical shift, and then the roles and responsibilities, and then I say we've got time for any questions at the end. So just to, before anyone wonders, this isn't a training session of the system. That's going to follow as part of the details that we'll send out. So key objectives, I think it's quite a unique team, because unlike the cafe and the detached, we have what I believe is a big responsibility, because we have people's precious items, whether or not that's a mobile phone or their credit cards or IDs. So our role is quite unique, and that's why we have to take a slightly different approach, which is probably seems a little bit more stringent and formal, but that's really important because we have that responsibility, and that's why it's important to make sure everyone is on the same page. So it is our responsibility to reunite lost items as quickly as possible. What someone doesn't want is to lose their item on day one and then not get it back, if it's a phone or something, until 3 or 4 weeks after, if there was a way for us to get that back sooner. So we have to do everything we can to be as efficient and effective in returning that lost property item. We have to support anyone who comes into the tent, whether or not that's signposting or actually supporting them, because we've often had people who've come into the tent, lost property tent, who might have had their possessions stolen or trashed, and we're not there just to reunite with lost items. We're there to support and help in any way we can, whether or not that's going over to the Oxfam and finding them some more items, or just helping them call their parents or something like that. But yeah, we're here to just show that love and to be true angels for especially for the young people, but anyone who's actually lost any items or is in a distressed state. And as I say, the key thing around it is we are driven by systems and processes. So hopefully that hasn't put anyone off from the start, but that's a really important part of how we achieve our objectives in the lost property team. So the progress we've made to date, all the shifts are now, I think, just about done. We might have the odd one which is still open, but we are more or less complete. Therefore, the shifts are now closed. What that means is that if anybody wants to change or swap shifts, then it's really important that they try and swap a shift themselves. So to reach out to someone else they may know and ask if they can swap a shift, rather than bombard myself and Hannah with lots of requests to move things around now, because it's taken a lot to get us to this point, and ideally people will be able to carry out the shift that they've committed to. But I will talk through what you need to do if there is an emergency, should you not be able to attend your shift in a further slide. You should have submitted your Google form, and that's around how you want to turn up at the site. You're staying overnight, you're camping, have you got a t-shirt, do you want a mug? So everyone should now have returned their Google forms to make sure they have everything they need to start. Alison has set up the full WhatsApp group, so that's now up and running, so you should have been invited to that. So if you haven't, then you need to let one of us know. The welcome pack has been issued, and that's not the lost property specific one, that's the overall welcome pack. So you should have received that and should be familiarising yourself with that. And as I say, you should, as part of this next process, be clear about what is expected of you, and that's what we're going to do today. So the next week, we will be sharing the training video with you. We found that's the best way to do it, is to record us doing the actual lost property tasks, and then for you to watch it back and spend as much time as you need to absorb that. We'll also be sharing the staff user guide, so that's the process side of things. So again, it'd be your responsibility to watch the video and to read the user guide, and there will be opportunities for you to come back and ask any questions once you've done that. You'll be receiving a user login for the system, so you need to make sure you test that and to make sure you've got the access you need. I know last year there was quite a number of people who turned up having not tested the login, and then it didn't work. So then it just means that you spend half an hour on that first shift getting those sorted. So we really need everyone to test their login before they turn up the first shift. We'll be setting up a lost property specific WhatsApp group. And that will be, as we've had in the past, it'll be a one-way only. So that will be the WhatsApp group for this team, just to push information out. So it will be to alert you of any changes in processes or anything that you may need to know in order to be able to carry out your duty in lost property. I'm going to set up a follow-up Q&A drop-in session, so it'll probably be around the same time next week on Sunday, and that will be for anyone just to come along and ask any questions, whether or not it's to do with the system or the process, and I can demonstrate anything, show anything, anyone they need. So that will be an opportunity for you to come along if you don't feel as though you're in a position to be able to hit the ground running when you start your first shift. And then we'll also be making sure that everyone knows how to register their phones in order to be able to help other people to do the same thing. And we do encourage everyone to register their phones. So if any phones do get lost, then it's easier to get them back to their owners quickly. Okay, so just a reminder, so before your first shift, we really need you to watch the training video, which is going to come out in the next few days, read the staff user guide, test your logins, and then attend the Q&A in order to ask any questions that you might have, because other people might also have the same issues that you're having. Okay, so your first shift and subsequent shifts, generally speaking, what we do is we put on the minibuses. So if you haven't been with us before, the minibuses have generally gone, leave the campsite at the half hour, which means they get to the lost property tent or the cafe, and then you walk to the lost property tent with a good 15 minutes before your shift, which is ideal. Because when you, before you start your shift, you need to sign in. And we haven't figured out whether that will be manual sheet or online, because I know there's both options at the moment, but we'll make that clear. And make sure that the team leader who's on shift can meet you and show you what your role is for that shift. And I'll talk about what those roles are in a few minutes. Okay. The end of every shift or through the shifts, please feed back to the team leader any areas that you think need to be improved or something that isn't working needs to be changed. That's really important, and people who've done this before will know that we do evolve. We always evolve because things happen that we haven't necessarily thought of, that have happened for the first time. So it's important that we then figure out a way of managing any particular process and then communicate that to everybody. One of the things we do ask, and I'll mention it again later, is that we don't just change a process in a shift. Otherwise, we'll end up with each shift doing different things, and that just leads to anarchy, if I'm honest. So, we really don't want to have chaos. We want to make sure that everyone knows what they're doing when they come into a shift, and if there's any changes, that will be communicated effectively through the WhatsApp group. Okay. So during the shift, it's really important that you log any issues, and there's an issues logbook that the team leader takes responsibility of in their shift, and then that transitions to the next shift. We need to make sure that we log out of the system at the end of each shift, and the new people coming into the next shift, they log in. So that's really important, because we use the system to track who's logged things, and if something has been logged and there's a query about it, we need to make sure we know who's logged it, so that we can go back to that person and they can help us resolve any queries. Really important from GDPR perspective not to leave any handwritten notes around the front desk area or anywhere. Again, in the past, people might write a note on a post-it note and then forget to actually hand it over into the issues logbook. Yeah, we really need to avoid writing a mobile phone number with someone's name on it, because that is a breach of confidentiality potentially. So we have to do things properly. As I said, Ian, it's a really professional area that we're trying to encourage, and that's a key thing that we need to make sure we don't do. We keep the areas clean and tidy, especially drinks, because we've got computers, laptops. We don't want drinks spilling and then putting a computer out of action, and just keeping everything tidy. And then the last point on there, really important, as we've said, to secure people's equipment. So we have a lockup cupboard, and making sure that that key is safe at all time and we don't leave it open is really important. Something I haven't put onto there, but we all have to be vigilant as well for people coming inside the area who isn't part of the team. So if they're not wearing a t-shirt or they're not in shift, they shouldn't be in the area, because we have had in the past things that have gone missing, and people saying, oh yeah, I did see someone walk around the side to where the phones are kept. It really is our responsibility, everyone's, to make sure that we keep everything safe and no one comes into our area that isn't on shift and isn't a Festival Angels lost property member. Okay. So I mentioned earlier about not being able to make a shift. So ideally, you'd reach out to another member and swap that with them. However, if that's not possible, or if you haven't been able to swap that shift, then message myself or Hannah. Both of our details will be in the staff guide, which we'll share, say, in the next day or so that we can arrange that to happen. The individual user logon setup, again, if you can't make a shift, it's really important that you let us know, then we can inactivate your logons. But hopefully, once you've set that up and we're using that forward, then that's okay. The WhatsApp group will be set up. Sorry, someone phoning me up. The WhatsApp group will be set up, but you won't be able to use that to let us know that you can't make a shift. So that's really, really important that you message us individually on WhatsApp, because we won't get any messages through the WhatsApp group. And I say the Q&A, that's taking place next week. Again, if you can't make a shift, I prefer you not to bring it up in there, but that will be the last opportunity if you've not been able to reach out to anyone to let them know. Okay, so I'm now just going to go over the main roles in lost properties so you can get an idea of what you'd be expected to do. So first of all, we've got the team leader, of which we'll have at least one in each shift. And they won't necessarily be allocated a role because they need to be able to move around, support anyone who needs to be supported within the team, but also deal with any festival goer who might need a bit more help. So it's important that they don't actually allocate themselves a role. So I don't want you to think, well, what are they doing? They're there to oversee rather than to actually do the roles that we'll talk about in the next slide. They're responsible for making sure the key is safe for the lockup cupboard, and they'll be keeping an eye on that all the time, and they will have hold of that all the time. So don't be put out if they don't allow you to open the key cupboard and keep the key, because there is only one per shift, and it's important for them to keep that and then to hand that over. And they're responsible for handing over any of the issues and logs, making sure that that's updated in the logbook, and to feedback on any process improvements. But as I mentioned before, we really don't want people to be changing processes within the shift. We need to discuss them with myself first in order to make sure that's communicated effectively, so everybody's doing the same thing. Okay, so the next role, if you're not a team leader, is you're either going to be front of house or back of house. So the front of house, as you'd expect, is there to support the festival goer directly. So they're going to have the most interaction with the festival goers. So the key things that they will be doing is they'll be showing the festival goer how to look for a lost item on the system. The system is accessible to everybody without them coming to the tent. But obviously, if they've lost their phone, and that's one of the things that they're looking to retrieve, then they might come to the tent anyway. And we will have the iPads at the front of the tent, all the laptops, and it's important that we allow them to enter those details and check things themselves. Okay. The reason why it's their responsibility to do that is because they have to key in the information, all their information, and it'd be very easy if we're typing things in to get that wrong. So then we've got the wrong email or the wrong telephone number or wrong contact details. So we literally hold on to the equipment and they actually key that information in. So the first thing they would do is they would look to see if their item has been found, so they can do that. And if it hasn't been found and isn't on the system already, then they can create an alert on the system, which I say is up to them to do. And that can be done on the iPad that we have. We then have to encourage them to use the system on an ongoing basis if they've got access to do it, rather than coming to the tent and attending the tent all the time. Because when we get into the really busy periods, what we wouldn't want them to do is to have to queue up for 10, 15 minutes, then get to the front and say, well, I've come to see if my item has been handed in, because ideally they can be checking that on either a friend's phone or their own phone if it's not a phone that they've lost. And if we've managed to be able to unite a piece of equipment with the user, then it's really important that the people at the front desk log that item out when that person comes to collect the item, and absolutely not before. We've had instances where items have been logged out, and then when someone's come to get the item, which it's showing as actually not being with us anymore. So it's got to be a proper handover of equipment to the person who has lost it. And then the last role that we talked about is what we call the back of house. And that's really important that they are at the back of house because they're registering the found items onto the system. We've found in the past that if you're trying to do it while you're at the front and you get distracted, either things are not logged properly or the lost items were actually left at the front. And then there's a danger of someone picking them up and taking them away, either inadvertently or actually stealing other people's equipment. So it's really important that any of the found items are always moved to the back trays. And then we've got a team at the back of house who are actually checking and registering those found items into the system. The first thing that they do is check to see if the whether it's the phone or the wallet or anything they've got has actually got contact details, so they can be contacted straight away. Because obviously, if we can get things out, brilliant. But otherwise, they're logging the item accurately and carefully into the system. They're printing off a label, and we have a printer to be able to do that. And again, attaching it securely. I sound like I'm probably being really patronising, but these are things that we just have to do so carefully, because if they're not, the labels fall off. If things are not logged accurately and carefully into the system, we can't find where the things have been put, or they've been registered under the wrong name or spelt wrong. So it's really important that we do this job and we do it really carefully. And then, of course, placing the item in the exact place that we've said it's going to be placed as recorded in the system. So that's either going to be in a lock-up cupboard if it's a valuable, in the crates if it's maybe a piece of clothing or a bag which we've taken the valuables out of potentially, or in the phone charging area. And generally speaking, we try to keep everything together, but sometimes that's not possible. So for example, if we've got a rucksack in and it's got a wallet in there, that rucksack probably won't fit in the lock-up cupboard. So we take the rucksack and leave that in the crate, but we take the wallet out and we put that in the lock-up cupboard. So it's really important that when we're recording these items onto the system, we make it really clear that they're linked and they're all held in the relevant places. And the last point I've made there for this particular team, the back of house team, is making sure that they stay safe. So wearing their gloves when they're checking wallets and items, because often there are drugs in the wallets. So they are removed and they're put into, we've got a drugs disposable box, which we keep in the locked up cupboard, and then we dispose of that in the Amnesty drugs box safely through security. Okay, we're almost there. So just to summarise, what we're expecting everyone to do as part of this process is watch the training video on how to use the system, test your user log on, and then have a play and read the process manual. And just on that, actually, there isn't a test environment, so you can go onto the system and you can actually create a lost item yourself or do anything you want, because the day before the festival starts, we'll clear everything off, so there's nothing you can do wrong. It really isn't a problem to create and have a play in the system, and then we'll just remove it all anyway. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing at this point, and I'm going to have sight of everybody and ask for any questions. Okay, so Alma, you've got your hand up. Is that a new question?
Sorry, no, it wasn't. I didn't realise it was up.
No problem. Alison?
Thanks. I was just going to confirm with the WhatsApp group. There is the WhatsApp lost property group that was set up. So what I'll do is I will send a link. So it's important that we invite everybody into the WhatsApp rather than actually just add them. So if that's all right, Joe, I think I will have another go at emailing everybody who has a lost property role the link to that. And then as Joe said, it will be limited so that people who can post messages in the WhatsApp group will be the admin, which is obviously Joe and Hannah. So the main Festival Angels overall WhatsApp is open, and hopefully you received an email and you can join that. At the moment it's a bit of a free-for-all, just to give people a chance to say hello and share some experiences, but that will be closed down as well before the festival starts. So again, it will work on the same principle, that it'll be messages that are put in there from an admin point of view, so that we can let you know if there's anything that needs to be known quickly, so it doesn't get lost in some of the quite nice banter and chit chat, which is lovely, and the photographs and everything else, but actually, you know, important things can get lost. So I'll send that email out tomorrow, if that's okay.
Thanks, Alison. Mel, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just asking, so the front of house, is there like, did you say it's like one laptop at the front?
So we generally have 2 or 3, and it might be that there's a mix of laptop and iPad, because sometimes an iPad's a little bit easier to navigate around. So yeah, we generally have at least 2 set up at the front, and then 2 laptops set up at the back, Mel.
Right, okay. So you can sort of, if you're not completely sure about the system, you could ask somebody who you're working with.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And what I'll certainly do is most of the team leaders are team leaders who've been on before, so they're all accustomed to the system, Mel. But I'll make sure that I'm there for everyone's first shift, not everyone in the whole team, but everyone's team leader first shift, so that the team leader is really comfortable with the system. And it does start off quiet. So generally speaking, your first shift, there is an opportunity to do that. And I think it's really important that everyone has an opportunity to do both roles, so that because you do go into the system in 2 different ways. So that's really important, because we want everyone to be able to do both of those roles at some point, rather than just either be sitting at the front because they prefer to do that, or sitting at the back because they don't necessarily want contact. But when it works well, actually, is a night shift. So a night shift when it's quieter, I think those people who generally prefer to be more at back of house get an opportunity to be at front of house, because it's not quite as busy and they don't feel as overwhelmed doing that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mel. Alma, did you put your hand up again, or are you okay? Okay. Alison?
Sorry, I think that was a historic hand.
Okay.
That's fine.
When it's all, Nick. Hi, Nick.
Just a quick question. Obviously, there's only like 12 of us online. Is that how many people are actually in the lost property? Because it's not everyone come on this meeting.
Mm. Yeah, it is a good point. There should be about 40, and that's often the problem, isn't it, Nick? In that people do turn up for the shift and they're not quite sure what to do, what to expect. But at least what we'll be doing is sharing this video and making it really clear it is the responsibility of everybody to watch the videos and training. And this is why lost property, as says, is probably a little bit more demanding, if you like, than the other areas, because we do have to understand the systems and processes a lot more than rather than just turn up. I know not everyone can do that, but I'm hoping that people will be able to spare an hour maximum over the next week to be able to just review the information that we're sending out.
Yeah, obviously it's just obviously it is my second year, so I've got a bit of an idea what goes on. But obviously when I was new last year, it was it's not as straightforward as people think to get used to the systems, especially if you're not great with computers, but people want to help, and it's easy enough to learn once you get going. But it's quite important that people do the training, because it makes it a hell of a lot easier on shift.
Yeah, and obviously first time you use it, it's a little bit hard, and then it does get easier. But I say I'm happy to do a session next Sunday at the same time as a drop in if anyone wants me to walk through the system, if they've done the training and had some questions. But what I don't want to do is go from start to finish through it all, because I say it's probably not the best use of everyone's time, is it, at this stage? Alison, you were next.
I was just going to pick up on the training. Obviously, there'll be a training on the system, but there is also other training associated with, Festival Angels that Paul has put together, just about general training and awareness, which is on the Festival Angels website. So how to manage people and different areas of things that you might want to consider. So it's worth having a look at some of that training. And just to say, the all welcome call that we had on Friday, we probably had about 35 out of 220. So percentage wise, we've not done badly, but we have had quite a lot of hits on my YouTube channel, on the catch up, as people are referring to it. So hopefully the beauty of that is it's there so that you can not just watch it for the first time, but if you can't quite remember something that was said, you can also revisit it and pick it up. So hopefully that's going to be useful. And I was just thinking, I don't know where you want to share the training video to, Joe, but if you wanted me to upload it onto there as well.
Yeah, I will do, Alison.
Do that as well. So it's a resource that's there whenever it suits you. So that will hopefully be helpful.
I'll send it to you and probably also via email, but I'll send it to you to load. That'll be great.
Okay.
Kevin, I think you're travelling on a train. Is it convenient for you to talk?
Yeah. Hi everyone, nice to meet you. So this is my first time, but I just wondered how many items on average get handed in per day, roughly?
Yeah, so it generally starts off slow and then gets more busy. But we've had an issue the last few years, if we're honest, Kevin, where there's been a bottleneck in things coming to us. So what generally happens is at the end of each day or each main stage, the security scoop everything and then hand it in. Security keep it, but what's happened is that they hold on to it for a few days. And then all of a sudden we'll get this big box of things, or things get handed in at the air hubs. So it's hard to say, that, okay, we get 100 in one day and 100 in the next day, because it's much more in peaks and troughs, to be honest with you. So what we do is if we're quiet on a shift, we encourage the team leaders to say to the people on shift, can they go for a walk to the hubs and see if there's any there that's been handed in, so we can proactively pick those up and bring them back. And we will keep reaching out to security as well to ask them to drop anything off, because otherwise what's happened the last few years is on the last day, on Monday, they bring like massive crate of lost property things, and it's like, well, we're done now and we have to hand those over to the post festival. So that probably doesn't answer your question, but we're always trying to make sure we're keeping on top of it. Ros?
Hi, how many people tend to be on shift at any one time?
Yeah, so we've got up to 7 or 8 people on a shift on the busier times. We have to be careful that we don't end up tripping over each other if we're not careful. But if it's really busy, it's important to have, maybe 3 people at the front, 3 people at the back, and then 2 team leaders supporting everybody. So a maximum of 8 in the busier times, and then the night shifts are generally 3 people, maybe 4, but generally 3, which is tight. But it's important at the night shift that everyone's kept busy, because there's nothing worse, is there, than working 6 hours and being bored. So there are less people, but you're generally kept busy because you're catching up on everything then.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Conrad?
Yeah, just to pick up on the note from last year, the Lost Property does have a radio channel assigned to it from event control, so please make sure that's kept on and handed over to team leaders. Also, Detached will be walking around the campsite manager's offices to pick up any lost property, because that got backlogged last year and there was a problem with it reaching lost property last year, so that'll be caught up on with the Detached team for this year.
That's great. Really appreciate that, Conrad. Thank you. And I'll just, Kevin, you've got your hand up. Can I just mention something, just before I bring you in, because you just reminded me there, Conrad. So the lost property tent is a big marquee, and at the back is what we call the cloud area, the cloud space. And that cloud area is where anyone either on shift or off shift can just chill out. We generally have sandwich makers, we have food, tea, coffee, cup of soup, beans on toast, anything like that available to any of the festival angels who want to use it. Again, it's everybody's responsibility to keep that tidy, but we have a wonderful person who replenishes the stock there on a regular basis, and I generally keep an eye on that and make sure that everyone's kept fed and happy and clean, because we don't want anyone to get poorly because we haven't got everything clean. So that's the place to relax the back, but it's also where the Detached team, and if people don't know what the Detached team are, they're the ones that go out and about supporting festival goers. They generally have their downtime there, and this year there's also going to be a bit of a signing in and signing out of that team at the back there. So I think it's going to be quite important to make sure that when people start their shifts, they come straight into the lost property area, so that they don't, it's not chaotic at the back there when there's a handover of shifts for the Detached team as well. Kevin, did you have another question, or was that an old hand?
That was an old hand, thank you.
Okay. These are all good questions. I prefer questions rather than people wondering.
Hi, Joe. Sorry, I didn't put my hand up. Sorry. Just to think on what Conrad just said about the radio. Obviously, we've just done Kendall and having the radios. Obviously, I know all the Detached, but I don't remember last year having a radio in Lost Property. But it is a really good way of communicating with the hubs and the Detached, bringing stuff to us. Is that something that's going to be? Are they going to have a radio on Detached that would come back to us and we could ask what is going on if people handed anything in, or that sort of communication? Is that going to be available? Because I don't remember it last year, but I might not have been.
Yeah, it's always been there, but we generally just use it in emergencies, if I'm honest, Nick. But I don't know if those hands have gone up specifically for this question. So I'll just bring Alison and Conrad, I think, because they were specifically hands for that, if that's okay. And then they might be able to respond a bit more on that. Alison?
Yeah, it was. So there was a radio previously. It's just that it didn't get handed over and used properly. There was a few radio calls from mainly Green Campsite about picking up a backlog of lost property from there. So it's just making sure that the team leaders actually keep it on and keep it near them for any calls that come into a lost property.
Yeah, I'll add that onto this presentation, Nick, when I share it, so that it's a key part of that. And I'll also add it onto the staff guide as well, so that's really clear. Thank you. Alison, did you want to add to that?
I was just going to say we have agreed with Festival Republic that we will have a good number of radios. I can't remember if it was 9 or 10. So there will be a radio allocated to the prayer cafe, to each of the hubs and the Detached teams. And I think Callie was saying the lost property will obviously have a radio, and we may actually have an extra radio for somebody who you know, is having that overall connection. So I agree that it is useful to keep in that radio contact, but then also to use the radio kind of appropriately, because having done a lot of work at Peace Hall, it's very clear that, you know, we're very clear with messaging, and when you've got so much noise going on as well, is to use the radio appropriately. And I think we'll obviously have guidance for that, but definitely use it when it's necessary for that communication channel. But we can also, you know, anything that needs to be communicated widely can be done by the admins through the WhatsApp groups. So again, it's important to keep an eye on your phone and your WhatsApp group just to see if there is any messages about anything that may come through. Some of the things I did minibus driving last year. So some of the things, if the minibus gets stuck, because, you know, with the best will in the world, particularly around the 11 o'clock shifts, it gets very difficult with transport. So if there's any delays or any issues that you need to be aware of on an ongoing basis, those will probably come through the WhatsApp groups rather than through the radio.
Thank you, Alison. That's helpful. Conrad, was that also on the same subject?
Yeah, just picking up a bit of what Alison was saying there, it will only be our air hubs that will have the radios for Festival Angels, not every air hub. And also, if you're a bit unsure on how to use the radio, just give me a shout and I'll show you how to use it.
Yeah, I think if we make sure then that of the team leader at the start of their first shifts, every team leader has a bit of a training session, I think that would be helpful. Yeah, thank you. Mel, thank you for your patience. Sorry about that. It was just all
It's
related.
okay. Just a quick question. If you've come off a night shift, say at 2 o'clock in the morning, is it safe to go back? Obviously, I'm guessing that the minibus is quite near where we are, is it?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that the minibus drop-off point will be at the back of the cafe again. Yeah, thank you, Alison's nodding there. Yeah, you walking through the main thoroughway. So there's generally still plenty of people around, and it's not so busy because people have generally drifted off anyway. So yeah, it is safe to do that. Obviously, if you feel uncomfortable anyway, then let's make sure that people are not walking back on their own, and encourage people to walk back, certainly on the late shifts, walk back together. So if that's something, Mel, that you're particularly think is an idea, then we can stress that out.
Okay, well, hopefully I'll be coming back with Gail anyway, so I won't be on my own, but I just wanted to ask the question, basically.
Yeah, no, it's a brilliant question. No, thank you for that. Your welfare is our most important to us. Nick?
Yeah, sorry, just reiterating on that, we walked a lot last year back and forward, and just to make it clear, everybody that is working, it's quite safe walkway because it's all staff area. It's not for, you don't go through the public areas apart from when you've come out of the arena area. Obviously late at night, it is well lit, and we found it fine walking back, and generally there's quite a few people walking back together, and other people are walking back as well. They're all sort of staff and part of the same community, so don't feel that it's, you know, not safe to walk about the arena areas even early morning or late at night.
Thanks, Nick. You just reminded me of something there, Nick, so I'm going to again put it out there. If you're on the I think it's 2 to 9 shifts, so starting at 2, one of the things I got caught out on a number of times was road closures, because they're doing road works or something like that. So that's probably, again, just putting it out there for anyone who's listening to this, just to make sure they give themselves plenty of time to, if they're, you know, don't aim for the 1:30 minibus, you know, because you can get there early, wait at the campsite, and then come down for the 1:30. But don't aim to get there for 1:30, because sometimes it was 2:15 before I got there, because it took me about an hour to get from York, because there was road closures. So just bear that in mind as well. Okay, any other questions? Anything at all? Okay, well, if anybody does think of anything else that we haven't talked about today, or they want to share any tips, as you have done, Nick, for previous years, then please drop me a note, because I want to issue the staff guide in the next day or so. But and as part of that, I always have the tips that we've learned from previous years in there. So if there's anything that you want to add from a previous year tip that you think would be useful, then please just drop me a message, and then I can finalise that and we can get that out to everybody in the next day or so. Okay, but thank you very much for giving me an hour of, or 45 minutes of your Sunday. And I really look forward to meeting you all in person and seeing you in the next week or so. Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Alice,
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good to see you all.
thanks very much,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.